I woke up with a bad neck, so I must have slept funny. Now I hear this all the time. People will come in and they'll basically say that they've gone to bed perfectly fine, no niggles, no problems, no previous neck issue, and then they wake up the next day and basically they're in agony for no apparent reason. So they come along and they're always looking for that physical explanation behind why they're in pain. And the first thing they'll say is, oh, I think I must have slept funny. What's interesting is sleeping funny isn't necessarily even a thing. Where's that sort of come from? There's no medical sort of diagnosis of slept funny, so why do we have this presumption that this sleeping funny is a thing? Now, there are obviously reasons behind why someone might wake up with neck pain, and they're not all the most obvious that you might think. Now, yes, there is something called postural strain. So, for example, if someone slept on the sofa in their head in an awkward position for a long period of time, so their head sort of like pulled forwards and to the side, then over a period of time being in that position, especially because you're not used to sleeping in that position for long periods of time, you're putting some stress on the tissue, which is generally fine, but it's how long it's lasted for. That then could cause you to wake up with an irritation to the structures of the neck. Would that cause an injury in like perfect kind of structural sense? Maybe, maybe not, but probably not. But yet it still irritates the body because it doesn't like that position. It's not used to that position, and that would be called postural strain. Now, most people aren't doing that. Most people are coming to me who just slept in their normal bed with their normal pillow. They've not done anything differently in the night. They're not waking up doing weird kind of sleepwalking, sleep activities or anything, as far as we know anyway. That might make more sense. But they still wake up with neck pain. And I think a lot can be down to, we already know when you scan normal people who have no pain, we find lists as long as your arm as what's actually internally, structurally not quite 100% in them. So that could be a disc bulge in the neck, a disc prolapse, a facet joint injury. It could be osteoarthritis, disc degeneration disease. It could be so many different things that could actually be inside their body that aren't at threshold yet, so they haven't become symptomatic. Now, we know that poor sleep, for example, or lack of sleep can lower pain threshold. And we also know that things like stress and anxiety and depression and loads of variables all play into the role as to why something will become painful. So their pain threshold drops in response to that. So if you've got an injury that is here and your threshold is there, then you're not going to have pain at that moment in time until either this increases, which could be postural strain, or this decreases. So if you have a poor night's sleep, then this could happen and you wake up with neck pain. And that actually makes more sense in what we know medically than actually the alternative of sleeping funny. Now, to the average person, this might sound ridiculous. In fact, it might sound the other way around, that sleeping funny makes more sense. But in terms of what we know medically, that's probably not necessarily the case. Now, this can go for the same in other activities as well, because most people I see come with a problem from an innocuous activity. They didn't really do anything with any stress or strain. So how are you going to take a perfectly grade A, perfect structure and pick up a pencil and bang, you're in agony, you've injured yourself? Well, in reality, that's not likely to injure you either. The body is very robust and strong. And the reality is the same rules apply to this sort of thing. People will say, oh, I must have lifted funny. And the reality is, again, there isn't necessarily a lifting funny or a lifting wrong. There's only, like in the context of that, if you're doing an activity that is very strenuous and you're not trained or capable of that particular motion. So, for example, we've spoken about in the past of flexing the spine, in real life, but never training that position in the gym. And that then leaves you potentially exposed to injury. But you've still got to do something with reasonable load to be able to injure it from 0 to 60, if you like. So if you pick up a pencil and your back just goes into spasm, clearly that pencil is not the reason that you've overloaded your back. Again, it comes down to them neural sensitivities. On that day when you pick that pencil up, it could be that your nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system was in a heightened state of protection. And that could be because, again, lack of sleep. It could be to do with stress and anxiety, depression, and variable factors in between. And therefore, when you do that movement, your body is more likely to go, we don't like this, we're kicking off some muscle spasm now and causing loads of protective reflexes in that fight or flight response. And that doesn't mean you're necessarily that injured. And this is why also a lot of people get this phenomena where they bend over, their back goes into spasm, they're in agony. 2 days later, they're fine again. Now, how could that possibly be the case if they'd injured themselves structurally? If you got a knife and you cut your arm open, damage to the tissue, 2 days later, it will be healing, but it won't be healed. And that's a tissue, skin, which is extraordinarily fast at healing, not structures like inside the body, which are often injured, which are a lot slower than skin would be. And therefore, in 2 days, going from agony to pain-free, getting better, doesn't make sense, does it, from a structural standpoint? But if your body is in a fight or flight response on that day or for a few days because of whatever them reasons we mentioned before, pain kicks off, spasm kicks off, which are protective reflexes, and then it suddenly realizes it's been over the top and switches them reflexes off within a couple of days, and you're back to feeling fine again. So this shows you that sleeping funny and lifting wrong or lifting funny, aren't necessarily real truths. They're kind of things we think about. We always think, what has injured me? What is structurally damaged? Where have I caused an overload? And yes, them things can occur in certain circumstances, but when someone comes in where there's no logical reason behind their pain, it's more likely that actually something else is going on. And it's more likely that central sensitization, that nervous system oversensitivity from fight or flight responses is more what's going on. So don't worry, therefore, is what I'm getting at here, that you've injured yourself massively and it's going to be a nightmare to sort out. Invariably, actually, that will create more stress, more fight or flight, and possibly more pain, lack of sleep, and all these other things. So it vicious cycles. So we want to get out of that vicious cycle and restore normality, get things going again gradually. That doesn't mean just carry on regardless, but you need to build back up and get things going again. So basically, sleeping funny, not really, not so much. Anyway, that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time.